powers that be. Sponsored by Alex R. White. Personal injury lawyers you can trust.
I am a proven winner, and we can't take a risk with this seat. We need to win. We owe it to our conservative principles and this president and this agenda to win.
A massive shakeup in the race to replace Senator Mitch McConnell here in Kentucky Friday evening, just before the running of the Kentucky Oaks, the 152nd running. President Donald Trump made his long-awaited endorsement in this U.S. Senate race, putting his full support behind Congressman Andy Barr. There was some chatter that he might do it at some point soon. Back Andy Barr, and he did it right as we kind of were waiting for primary season to come about. It was about 19 days away, and it happened. I'm Isaiah Kim Martinez. Welcome into the Powers That Be. You see President Donald Trump's Truth Social post again on Friday evening, essentially saying that Andy Barr is a proven political winner who is, quote, always a vote he can count on because he knows what it takes to get things done. And this was just the beginning of the shakeup. He went on to say that he had told Nate Morris, who was another Republican candidate in sort of this top three GOP battle here between Nate Morris, Andy Barr, and Daniel Cameron. Donald Trump says he told Nate Morris, hey, if you get out of this race, I promise you an ambassador role in my administration. Nate took it, so he's out of the race. Nate Morris actually posted on X. You'll see his statement here. He says, when President Trump asks you to serve your nation, you answer the call. And that's exactly what he says he's doing, saying he's incredibly proud to be a part of the Trump administration. And then the shakeup and twists continue. He goes on to endorse Andy Barr. Just like clockwork, it was what everyone expected, right? Not necessarily. These two were going at it. They were at odds for several months on the air as well, attack ads going back and forth. Now, sort of what everyone's wondering is, how does that electorate, the folks who were going for Nate Morris, how do they break up? Do they immediately go to Andy Barr? And what does that mean for Daniel Cameron, who's the sole high-profile candidate outside of Barr, left on the Republican side of this race with just days left until the May 19th primary, 15 days as of this episode's filming. So a lot to get to in this show today. I do want to show you exactly what Congressman Barr said to WHAS 11. This was actually on Derby Day, so this is the morning after the endorsement came down from President Trump. Here's some of what he had to say specifically about that phone call he says he had with Trump before he received his backing.
We had a great phone call yesterday, and like I said, I thanked the president on the phone, and I told him that I was honored to be a persistent and consistent supporter of his in the U.S. House, and that I will be his #1 champion in the Senate as well. We're really honored to have earned the endorsement of Nate Morris, and he was a great candidate, and now I'm so grateful that he also has endorsed me in addition to the president, and has told his supporters that they should all vote for me in this Senate primary. And we're grateful to have Nate Morris and all of his supporters supporting our candidacy now. We would welcome Daniel Cameron's support as well. We have every confidence that the voters in the Republican primary electorate are seeing the same things that President Trump sees. They see a winner, someone who has this president's back. They see someone who has a record of delivering conservative policy results in Congress, and they know I can do that in the Senate as well.
Again, Congressman Andy Barr talking to WHAS 11 right there at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. And there's a lot of fascinating wrinkles to this that we have to talk about. First of all, he confirmed to WHAS 11, Barr did, that they would be running an ad, sort of touting this Trump endorsement. Sure enough, first thing Monday morning, that's in my inbox. They are running an ad, the Barr for Senate campaign. It doesn't even show Andy throughout the majority of it. It is all about Trump saying, my complete and total endorsement. They put that in big letters. Then they have President Trump in his Northern Kentucky visit saying, Andy Barr, he's always been with me. He's a warrior. They play that again. And then they'd only show Congressman Barr and his family at the very end of the ad. They are absolutely pushing this in these final 2 weeks of the primary. And that is honestly not surprising given the political earthquake that was President Trump's endorsement after close of business on Friday night. I do want to mention I reached out to multiple politicos that night as this was all happening in Kentucky to sort of get a feel if it's now just Andy Barr and it's Daniel Cameron, but now Andy Barr has President Trump's backing, and we already know Mitch McConnell had shifted from Daniel Cameron in his past races. He and many of his folks in the McConnell circle, their influence is now fully in support of Andy Barr. So Andy Barr has essentially got McConnell and Trump behind him. I asked multiple politicos, I said, is this race essentially over, is the question I asked. Trey Grayson is the former Kentucky Secretary of State. He's a Republican. He actually ran for Senate himself against Rand Paul back in 2010, excuse me. Trey Grayson said, quote, "It's over." He went on to say, "I'm not surprised. Andy had pulled into a lead, had plenty of money to close strong, and had put himself in a great position for Trump to come in and endorse to put it away." That was Trey Grayson, the Republican former Kentucky Secretary of State. Louisville GOP strategist and political consultant Iris Wilbur-Glick said, quote, I think the shrinking chunk of undecideds will fall in line behind Barr." Finally, Republican strategist Jake Cox of Louisville told WHAS 11, quote, "Between Morris being asked to step aside for an ambassadorship and the endorsement of Barr, unfortunately for Cameron, this race is over before the call to the post." Just some of the reactions from those who know Kentucky, who know Kentucky's political climate. And it really seems, according to them, that this is going to be an uphill climb for Daniel Cameron. Nonetheless, Daniel Cameron, the former Kentucky Attorney General, is not leaving this primary. He made it very clear the night of that he is not dropping out. There has been still chatter, though, to this point, days after, whether the GOP is really going to sort of pressure him and say, hey, rally behind Barr. You know, we'll find something for you. Just, hey, like, let's do this, weeks before the election. This is what Daniel Cameron said the night of, as this was all happening on X. Here's part of his post.
My response is this. At the end of the day, I am in this race because I care deeply about the future for Theodore, Bennett, and Harrison, and I care deeply about the future for your kids and your grandkids. I want our future generations to grow up in a country that lives up to the ideals of our founding, one that is based on merit and opportunity, and I'm going to keep standing firm for your values.
And it's notable. Remember, I talked about how sort of the McConnell influence and support has left Daniel Cameron entirely after that gubernatorial campaign against Governor Andy Beshear. Obviously, Daniel Cameron had lost that race. Daniel Cameron's consultant, his general consultant, actually responded in just a very simple statement. After this endorsement, he said, congrats to Mitch McConnell for getting his guy. Again, Brandon Moody, Daniel Cameron's general consultant. I want to real quick touch on this. Daniel Cameron is going to be having a news conference at the Jefferson County Republican Party's headquarters on Tuesday. That is May 5th, tomorrow, as of this filming. And it basically said that it's going to be to talk to the media and folks in Kentucky about sort of the future of this race and the status of this election. There has been chatter. Is this his way of saying he's going to drop out? Is that what he's going to announce? Is he going to drop out of this race? From everything I'm hearing from multiple folks I've talked to, it seems Daniel is still actively out looking for support in this race. He is reaching out to folks across the state. My understanding is he is going to continue to run until the very end, and he might really sort of lean into, I am the political outsider all of a sudden, which is sort of wild to think as of what had happened just 3-4 years ago and who he was, running with and who he was supported by. But now it seems the Rand Pauls of the world, the Thomas Masseys, that could be his circle and frankly, his only avenue in this race as we move forward with just days left. We are going to hear from Daniel Cameron coming up after this break. This interview was recorded the day before the Trump endorsement came down. Obviously, we didn't know that, but there are still significant parts of this interview that you'll want to hear from the U.S. Senate candidate. Daniel Cameron's interview with me here in the studio is coming up right after this word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Sue, distracted driver. I'm attorney Alex White. If you're injured, visit SueDistractedDriver.com.
We're joined today by Kentucky's former Attorney General, Republican Daniel Cameron. Daniel, thanks so much for taking a few minutes today.
Isaiah, it's always good to be with you, man, and excited for this new setup you guys have.
Yeah.
This is pretty phenomenal.
We like to do the long form,
Yeah,
right, when we
of
can,
course.
have a kind of an extended conversation,
Sure.
not just about your campaign, but how things have changed over the years. You are somebody who Kentucky knows very, very well. You served as a Kentucky Attorney General, and you ran for governor back in 2023. Fast forward to now, you are running for one of the top seats in this state. Mitch McConnell has had that seat for over 40 years. What do you know today that maybe you didn't know in February of 2025, saying, okay, this is how I need to approach this in the final days?
Well, I don't think there was anything that has sort of been surprising to us necessarily. I do think that there is an increased pace around this campaign in terms of the national interest, and then just the breadth of events that you try to get to. And if you can't get to, you're trying to get surrogates to. And to your point, I mean, this seat hasn't been open since 1984, and it's the people's seat, and the people want to see you, hear from you, and have dialogue and conversation with you. And so there's very much just an energy around this race that has grown every week, candidly. It feels like just the intensity around it just continues to grow, and the people that are sort of forecasting or sort of analyzing it. So yeah, it certainly has picked up in terms of the pace of just how many events we're doing and how many people you're trying to get in front of.
I asked Senator Rand Paul, who's soon to be senior senator in Kentucky, who he would like to be, or essentially asked for his sort of take on the Republican side of this race, who he might be backing. And he actually said your name. He said he's not going to make an endorsement. He's not going to be any campaign ads, but he says he's leaning toward voting for you because he says, and I'm quoting here, you are the only one of the three Republicans who I think has shown any sort of ability to put forward a platform. I'm sure this isn't news to you. You've talked with Senator Paul, but your thoughts on hearing this.
Well, what I've said since day one is there is a lot of room within Team Cameron to have support from across the Republican political spectrum, and I'm thankful to Senator Paul, who's seemingly said that he intends to vote for me, and it just underscores the case that you can find a home. I mean, I get asked sometime about some of the liberty-minded Republicans that have endorsed this campaign, or I point to others that have endorsed, or Kentucky Right to Life that is endorsed. There is a movement afoot within this Commonwealth to jump to a campaign that is about common sense values, about ensuring that when it comes to your constitutional rights, someone in Washington is looking out for that. I happen to have a track record on that front of standing firm for those values, and we feel very strongly that people continue to join this effort and this campaign. I'm excited about where we are, and again, his support just reiterates the fact that this is a big tent movement that we've put together, and folks of all stripes within the Republican Party are coming along for this journey with us, and that's why I'm going to be the nominee come May 19th.
You just released your first campaign ad that isn't PAC affiliate, like your campaign ad last week, but you've seen Andy Barr and Nate Morris go back and forth for a while. There is a clear difference in sort of the messaging and the theme, in my perspective, where you have sort of President Trump is central to both of their ads. I don't believe you even named President Trump. I saw a clip, he was in there, but you took a different tone to it. Why? And explain sort of the strategy here.
Well, look, we at the end of the day, I mean, you hope to be able to put out several messages during a campaign. So I think you'll see a message from us here soon that is, a focal point of that is the America First agenda and standing firm for that agenda and with President Trump. But when it came to the first ad, I think a lot of folks, in my judgment, have gotten tired of the mudslinging, and they just want to see, a fresh face, someone who is speaking to the issues that they care about. And that's what we tried to do in that first ad. And I think it's gone over well with people as I've talk to folks, whether at church on Sunday, or if I see them at events, or just at the grocery store, people said, "Hey, we really like your ad, and it you're staying positive. You're not getting down into the mud with the other two guys." And I think that's a reflection of who I am as a person. As I've said a lot, my identity is in Christ, and I'm trying to articulate a message back to Senator Paul on the stuff that people care about, whether it's making sure we keep their taxes low, or energy independence, or standing firm for law enforcement, or looking out for our farmers and making sure we have a new farm bill, or immigration, saving the Save America Act and making sure that gets passed. I mean, I'm talking about these things daily. PBMs, making sure we reform that process so that independent pharmacists aren't pushed out of the market. These are the issues that I've focused on, and that first ad was a really attempt to say, hey, I'm here. You've gotten to know me and my family, and we certainly would be honored to have your support in this campaign.
Obviously, when you served as Attorney General, you had statewide reach. So you learned probably about communities that you didn't know as much about, going to U of L, growing up in Elizabethtown, just south of us here, now living in Oldham County. But let's talk about our area for a second, central to here. How important is Jefferson County to the outcome of this race? Because you do hear from some Republicans who say, hey, if we lose 60-40 in the two biggest cities and win everywhere else, we're good. How do you view the importance of Louisville in this race as a Republican?
Well, Jefferson County is critical. I mean, Isaiah, you know this. I mean, it's why I've been going all over the state. I mean, it's why I showed up in the west end of Louisville a few weeks ago.
I remember that, the Bishop's Table. Yeah.
And so I've shared with people that I'm willing to go anywhere, and whether that's with Renee Shaw on KET and I'm by myself there, or if it's standing on a podium on a stage at Hillbilly Days in Pikeville, or if it's being at the Bishop's Table in West Louisville, I'm going to show up. And I think people, sometimes, look, Paul writes in Scripture that in some places you'll be well received and others you won't, but at the end of the day, you shake the dust off your sandals and you move to the next town. That's what I've tried to do, is just continue to talk about the issues that people care about. And frankly, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, and as I talk to majority Republican primary voters, I say, look, this isn't about Republican versus Democrat. A lot of this is about crazy versus normal. And what I'm trying to articulate is normal, common sense, everyday values that people around the dinner table talk about when it comes to the issues that they see and they're confronting. And, that's why I feel, whether it's Jefferson County or any community, any of our 120 counties, you got to show up and you got to be willing to have the conversations that I'm trying to have with voters.
Speaking on the west end of Louisville, how significant was your appearance there to you, just as Daniel Cameron, just knowing that not only is West Louisville generally votes blue, but we know that there were some folks, and I was looking at the video, who were there who may have been protesting in the summer of 2020, some of them protesting specifically some of your decisions. Yeah. And we know the history with them, some protesters showing up on your front lawn. I mean, how significant was it for you to show up that day, knowing that maybe not everyone would be clapping for you?
Well, it's back to my earlier point, is you're not going to always be received well, but I hope at the end of the day people respect that I showed up in that room. And what I said to folks there that day is, look, I'm not here for a political spiel. I'm here as a brother in Christ and somebody who cares about this community and wants to see every part of Jefferson County thrive. That's critical, and I think I've got a responsibility as a senator to ensure that, and that was part of my message that morning, and why I was there, and again, why I will continue to show up in places all across this Commonwealth, because everybody deserves good, strong representation that is looking out for ways in which we can make sure every community thrives.
A few more questions here. Again, we are sitting down one-on-one with Daniel Cameron, of course, Kentucky's former Attorney General and Republican U.S. Senate candidate. I want to talk about the Democrats a little bit. I mean, you actually had a moment with Charles Booker there at the Bishop's Table where you guys kind of embraced for a second, chatted for a little bit. I mean, you and Charles are no stranger to running for races in this state. I mean, do you see him as the front runner on that side?
Well, look, I'll make sure that the Democrats, have their opportunity to make that judgment and decision on May 19th. But at the end of the day, you can't take for granted whoever comes out of that primary, and you got to work your tail off and got to get to as many places as possible. I'm confident when I'm the nominee for this party that I'm going to win in November, but you got to work hard. And I've got a message I think that will resonate across Kentucky. But yeah, look obviously forward to seeing who will ultimately come out on that side.
Yeah, I want to touch on Mitch McConnell. That not necessarily just his legacy and what the seat means, but also your relationship with him. I mean, you have been clear that he's somebody who, of course, he mentored you, right? I mean, you worked sort of in his realm for a while, and it seemed in many ways when you ran for governor, and even this in the future, that he was somebody who is going to support your path. But it seems clear to me that maybe that relationship isn't what it once was. I mean, can you tell us here right now? I mean, are you pretty much operating without that support of the McConnell team at this point? And if you could shed some light on that.
Well, yeah, as I've obviously said before, some folks on his team got upset when I said he was wrong about some votes related to Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth,
confirmations,
and RFK Jr. And some people on his team didn't like that, and there was sort of a mad dash to support Andy Barr. But what I've said is it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, folks have to make a decision about who they're going to pick in a primary, and those are tough decisions that are made. But we feel very good about our campaign and the people that have gravitated to it. And we don't have millionaires and billionaires supporting the campaign, but at the end of the day, we have the trust and support of people here in Kentucky. And I've got, when it comes to resources, we're going to have the resources to win. And I've got more Kentucky donors than anybody else in this race, and so we're in a strong position. Again, as I mentioned earlier, folks are going to make decisions about who they want to support, and a lot of the McConnell team decided to support Andy Barr. But at the end of the day, as I said in 2020 when I stood at the RNC convention on behalf of President Trump, I'm my own man, and I make my own decisions, and what you're going to get in Washington is somebody who's going to stand firm for the constitutional rights of our citizens.
To some degree, do you feel like you're more free to make decisions that you've called your team sort of the small and mighty team, right? You name, 3 or 4 folks at every press conference. You're like, we're doing this together. Do you feel a little more free maybe without sort of all that influence and that many hands in the pot to kind of do what you feel like you want to do for this campaign and want to focus on?
Well, I think the great sort of misunderstanding, if you will, is, I've never been sort of the establishment person. I know I've gotten sort of tagged as that, but the candor and truth is that until I was a senior in college, I'd never been to a Lincoln dinner, and obviously worked in D.C. for a couple of years, and but when I ran for Attorney General in 2019, no one really knew who I was. It was just a lot of shoe leather and banging on doors and asking people to support the campaign that we ultimately came out victorious there. And I think it was a surprise to a lot of people within the Republican establishment when I ran for governor in 2023. Again, I didn't ask anyone's permission. I just made the decision that it was better to be on offense than defense, meaning that I could tell the governor that he couldn't shut down churches, and I did that. I stood on the steps of the Capitol and said that was a violation of the First Amendment, and then the very next day he shut down churches, and ultimately we got into court and got churches reopened after 9 days, but it was a difference of going from defense to offense. But I didn't run that decision by anybody other than talking to my wife and our families about what it looks like to run in that race. But that's, I think, been sort of the part that has been misconstrued in the sense of who makes the decisions. I've always made the decisions about running, whether it was this race, whether it was the governor's race or the attorney general's race. I've always been very strongly relying on my relationship with Christ and praying about these decisions and talking to obviously my wife Mackenzie, because it's a family affair, and whether it's Grams and Papa D, who are my in-laws, or Glammy, my mom, who are helping with the boys or knocking doors or putting out signs. It's very much a family affair, and those are the people that I rely on when we're making these decisions.
Last couple rapid fire questions before I let you go. The McConnell statue has gotten a lot of attention. The Kentucky legislature has moved forward to sort of make that a reality. Is that something you think is appropriate and earned and the right move?
Well, let me say this. I have seen Senator McConnell work under considerable fire. And, when I worked in D.C., it was the fateful decision to not hear the Merrick Garlick nomination. And Senator McConnell made that decision. And because of it, we have the Supreme Court that we have today, one that is standing firm for the Constitution. And so he is to be honored for that decision to support the decision that he made not to hear that nomination. And in many ways, it changed the trajectory of the United States Supreme Court.
And finally, economic development, with this mayor currently in place, this governor, that seems obviously is almost every day a top or top two priority. What is, if you were elected to be the next U.S. Senator, we talk about all the money that Mitch McConnell has brought back to U of L, UK, a lot of different infrastructure projects. Is there one economic development project that you have on the back of your mind to say, this is something that I could help with if I were elected?
Well, I think there are ample opportunities when you look at coal, natural gas, and the provisions of nuclear that are being made in West Kentucky. You're going to have an ecosystem around that, whether it's the increased generation of coal to help with some of the new technologies that are coming online, whether it's the nuclear down in West Kentucky. We're going to need. And we're grateful that here in Louisville we have a logistics hub. In Northern Kentucky they have a logistics hub as well that can help us transport some of the energy that's necessary to fuel these technologies of the future. And so I think we can continue to grow in Jefferson County simply because of our capability as a logistics hub. And I want to be a supporter of that in the United States Senate. And then as a broader matter, when it comes to how do we ensure people thrive here in Kentucky, keep your taxes low, make sure you have more of your hard-earned money in your pocket, and look out for job creation. And I think a senator has the capability to be a convening authority, to bring people to a room and say, hey, what is necessary to get you to move to Kentucky? And I want to be a part of that conversation.
Daniel Cameron, former Kentucky Attorney General, as well as Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. The primary is May 19th.
May 19th, my friend.
Daniel, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks, Isaiah.
We appreciate it.
Right.
And thank you for joining us.